So thankfully, uh, I mean, the bug didn't last very long. Hey everyone, welcome to the 135th edition of the ClariTea Chat. Happy Women's Day, and on this special day, we have an accomplished woman leader, technology leader, Namrita Mahindro, CDO of Aditya Birla Chemicals, joining us from Mumbai. Hey Namrita, welcome to the session. Cheers.
Thank you for
So
having me here on ClariTea Chat, Jagdish.
it's a pleasure, Namrita, and thanks. I know we did not give you too much time, and thanks for accepting at a short notice. So, guys, let's introduce Namrita. She started her career as a Japanese translator after her BA honors from JNU. Then she pivoted to join a friend's startup and learned technology. Uh, post that entrepreneurial stint, she moved to UK, excelling in automotive distribution and travel, and in digital operations. She came back and led digital transformation in hospitality, automotive, and chemicals. Now, as we go through the chat, you will realize that she's a data-driven leader focused on results and ownership. She built digital operations at Inchcap Retail, led digital transformation at Taj Hotels and Mahindra Group, and she also runs a podcast on AI. Now, that's something common between us, automotive and podcasts. Okay, so for a major part of her career, she was a business leader driving digital operations and was responsible for driving results with technology. So she therefore brings a practitioner's insight to technology as well as a capability builders. So our chat is going to bring both the perspectives of a CDO as well as a digital operations leader. So her leadership philosophy is adapt fearlessly, own relentlessly, and scale impact, leveraging technology and analytics to drive meaningful customer-centric business transformation. So we will cover her life story, but our focus will be on themes as we always do in ClariTea Chat: risk taking and adaptability, ownership with numbers, scaling digital operations, which she did very effectively in few of her stints, customer centricity, these were customer centric digital operations, and analytics mindset and how that leads to success with AI, and operational excellence that she has been driving off late. So we'll end the chat with a rapid fire round and bring out the personal side of Namrita and then a reverse question to me. So, Namrita, let's start. Before we start talking of serious things, let's get some energy going up. Please share a humorous professional or personal incident.
Well, if I was to start with a humorous personal or professional incident, I think the fact that, you know, it's not as humorous as the fact that I think a lot of things are very mystical. So our conversation today is very mystical because I had, as you know, a couple of things on my agenda. You had a couple of things, but I think I strongly believe that when things happen, when people meet in life, there is a purpose behind it, and they happen, for a reason. So I think that is something that has withstood the test of time for me, and that's sort of how I've seen. Uh, Conversations leading to connections leading to larger collaborations, and things taking on from there. So yeah, with the ClariTea Chat, I'm hoping that this is the beginning with all of you today over here, for not just a conversation, but a longer journey ahead.
No, absolutely. And when Namrita said that there were some accidents in the ClariTea Chat. So guys, here is the interesting story about today's ClariTea Chat. So when I reached out to Namrita, she was okay, but with a caveat that she had an afternoon engagement somewhere, and 5 o'clock was a little bit dicey. And then I just checked with Vinay and Sumit, guys, is it okay with you if we intrude into your evening by pushing it to 6 o'clock? And both of them were like cool about it. And then what happened was, just day before yesterday, I got an invitation for being a jury in a hackathon in a nearby university, and that was from 2 to 4. And my first reaction was no. I mean, I have my ClariTea Chat at 5, and then immediately I remember that we pushed it to 6 o'clock, so yes, I can do it. So it was still a little bit touch and go for me, but I managed to make it at 5:45 back. And I think that was the accident. Like first Namrita rescheduled it to 6 o'clock, and because of that, I could actually make it to another engagement. No, absolutely, Namrita. I fully agree with you. Things happen by a design, and there's nothing by accident, right? Okay, so guys, we will know more about Namrita and her philosophies and principles as we go through. But for now, let me acknowledge our audience. So we have CXOs, founders, IT managers, and seasoned technology industry leaders in our audience. All of us know that technology is necessary but not sufficient to drive business performance. The guests on ClariTea Chat, like Namrita, have built that bridge between the necessary and sufficient with their art of managing technologies. And ClariTea Chat builds that bridge between their learnings and all of you who are trying to make a powerful impact with technology. So thank you all for joining us for the last 134 episodes and encouraging us with your interactions and questions. Now I know that we had a bit of a break between the last one and this one, and that was because of my travel. Couldn't help it, and Vinay knows I did not even have sort of time to kind of just do a post that we won't be having the clarity chat today. But still, thank you everyone for joining. And now, as usual, may I request all our audience to share your names and where you're joining from in the comment box of LinkedIn or YouTube, wherever you're joining from. And let's see who has joined us. So we have Amarinder here. And Amrinder, sorry, Namrita, Amrinder has been cheeky enough to write something in Japanese. I don't know whether you still can figure it out.
Yeah, I was just figuring that out. So there is a mix of. So I haven't used Japanese in the last 20 years, and as they say, if you don't use it, you lose it. So I can see the mix of. I could recognize this is Japanese because there's a mix of kanji, katakana, and hiragana, all three.
Oh,
Uh,
wow. Okay.
so there are three. So that's the interesting thing about Japanese script. It's got three different formats that you put together to form the language, in the written form. But yeah,
Amrinder, I know how you did it. Okay. I mean, you have used Google Translate to fox us. And, I am hoping that, we'll get some chance to get back at you. But thanks, Amrinder, for joining. And Manish, from Hyderabad. I know this guy is in Pune right now, and actually he was the one who invited me for hackathon. So thanks, Manish, for inviting me, and of course, being able to join after a very very happening hackathon. So Melroy Braganza is joining us from office from IHCL Mumbai. Hey, thanks, Melroy. Um,
Melroy is a
and
dear friend from my Taj days. So hi, Melroy.
oh,
Thanks for joining in.
hey, thanks, Melroy. Yeah, that makes it special. Yeah, when your friends join. Yeah. Okay, so let's get started. So Namrita, please give us an overview of your education, career, company's roles, and maybe just one highlight of each. The whole idea of this is how you grew, from a fresh graduate to where you are today, and what kind of steps you have led there.
So, Jagdish, as you know, we discussed and as you already shared, my journey was very unconventional, for the times, for the late 1990s in some senses, because at that point in time, most people were doing engineering or medicine. We were still in that era. So, given that, I chose to do Japanese language, which itself was a little unconventional, but my whole idea was I learned it as a hobby course, and then from there I found that it was very interesting. I wanted to pursue it further, and that's why the undergrad. After having completed it, I became a translator for 3 years. It was great fun being a translator because you were getting to work on some with some very interesting companies like Maruti, YKK Zips, etc. I was also getting to work with a lot of Japanese ambassadors' children, teaching them English language. So they would speak to me in Japanese, and so the journey started from there. But after 3 years, I realized that that's not something that I want to do for the next 30 years. So the choices were to fork out into something different, or go and do a master's. At that point in time, I decided to change tracks. I think from there were a couple of short stints I did in a bunch of different things, and eventually, when I was still trying to figure out what next, this opportunity came out with a friend, to join him. And now, given that I'd done some computer science in school, the idea was, how do I take on this role? And so I went to NIT, which was the next best thing in those days, and learned Java and C++, and a little bit of Adobe Photoshop. And having done that, got into the role. I think the entrepreneurial stint was one of the best things that I did, because when one is young, one is, I think, far more risk risk taking, versus as one has maturity and wisdom on their side. So having said that, I think the two things that happened for me over there were, one, really around building an ownership mindset, because, like I was telling you, Jagdish, when we were prepping for this call, you do everything from being the door person to the director, in when you are starting out. And I think that really gives you a sense of wanting to know everything in depth, understanding it, and taking responsibility for it. And this happened because we had a team of 6 people, and then we had partners and freelancers, etc. Did that for about 2 years, and then decided to move into the corporate sector. Now there is a fun backstory around it in terms of how this whole thing happened, but I'll save it for another day. Otherwise, we'll spend half of this chat with my sharing that. But moving on, moved to the UK shortly, within 6 months of wrapping up the entrepreneurial venture. And there I had the opportunity to do three things. One, I did my MBA finally, but the focus was around marketing and strategy. Those were areas that I still very much enjoyed, and I wanted to continue there. And the second was two stints, one before the MBA and one after the MBA. So the first one was around looking at travel and hospitality, and the second one was in the automotive space, automotive retail to be particular. I'll just dive in for a minute into what made the first stint very special. The fact that we were in a market where we were selling ground travel products like hotels, translation services, cars, etc. Anything that you see, that you need for travel purposes when you go and visit a new place. And we were predominantly tying up with a lot of other travel companies, saying that we can provide the ground travel products, so airlines, ship companies, ocean liners, etc. And I took a deviation from there, and I think a little bit of the out of the box thinking and the risk taking came from there. And I approached the Daily Mail Group, which was the largest and still pretty much is one of the largest players as far as media in the UK is concerned, and said, let's do a tie up as your exclusive partners for hotels. In the UK, as you launch your 28, 29 online channels. So they had physical sort of newspapers, but they were launching their online channels. This is 2002, 2001, 2002. So given that era, you will have to transport yourself to that era. It was a very big thing. We managed to secure
Absolutely.
that deal, and it of course did a huge thing. The lesson learned from there was Octopus Travel, which was the company I was working for, was a brand new sort of startup. It was backed by a large conglomerate, but it was a startup in its own right. And by getting associated with the Daily Mail Group and subsequently with AOL, that was the second partnership that we did. We managed to take the brand sort of positioning in the mind of the customers to a completely different level. I think that was a very important lesson that I learned, that when you are starting out, when you're doing your own venture, the brands that you associate with can take up or take down your own brand value. So that partnership, of course, worked extremely well for us. The second stint was even more interesting. I think that was with Inchcape Retail, where I was looking at two portfolios. One, we were looking at automotive, dealerships. Now there they had multi-brand dealerships, and we were dealing with 20 different brands, right from the Ford and Kias and the Volkswagens to the Ferraris of the world. And obviously, the way you would look at digital marketing for both of these sort of segments and everything in between was very different. So on the one hand, you would look at trying to sell cars online, and here I'm talking about 2005. And on the other hand, you are trying to look at just sell merchandise, etc. I think the interesting thing for us was two pronged. One, I think the manager that I had, and that goes back to the leadership styles that each of us has. This manager that I had was absolutely amazing because he gave a lot of leeway for me to experiment. So pretty much in the entire UK market, not just in the automotive industry, I would say across categories, the level of experimentation we were doing in digital, small POCs, but we were doing them all the same, was, I would say, almost market leading in some senses. And the benefit, of course, for that was that, we were first in the market with a lot of initiatives, and we took a lot of risks with that. So there was a government regulation which came out, which talked about, distance selling, and anything that was sold, through distance selling on the phone or through the internet could be returned within 7 days. And using our customer market research and insights, we actually ran a campaign. Again, as I said, it goes back to my manager's credit that he actually allowed me to run that campaign, saying that you can come and return your car within 7 days. That led to our doubling of our sales, new car sales, for 2 consecutive years. Of course, I'm not saying that campaign alone solved for it, but that was a big push that we had, when we went out there and when we ran those kind of campaigns. So I think those were very pivotal moments in my first decade of my experience in terms of shaping what kind of a leader do I want to become, what kind of opportunities or risks do I want to take, or do I want to be very conformist in my way of working, and the ownership mindset which came from the entrepreneurial stint. These became very defining. I'd say the second chapter in my life was really around, when I came back to India, started with Trilogy, which was a US based technology company, and we were building products. And that was again a very interesting 2 year stint, because that's where a huge deep dive into analytics sort of became the core strength of all the products that we were building. So everything from lead scoring to looking at digital marketing and having a lot of analytics behind that. And we were working with some of the leading OEMs, whether it was Hyundai, GM, Ford, in India, and helping them either increase their market share or their profit share in the market, or their sales volumes. So, given that, I think that stint made me realize the value of analytics in being able to differentiate oneself as a marketer. And from there, then I moved to the Taj Group of Hotels. So, of course, the Tatas, have this special place because of, again, I think the opportunity that they give you in terms of size, complexity, and scale. We had 100 hotels across 10 different geographies, and you can begin to start thinking about the kind of digital maturity we had across the spectrum, extremely varied. So given that, I think again a huge learning, but this was also the launch pad for me to actually transition from digital marketing only to a digital transformation role. And again, as I said, Tatas are known for being first movers in a lot of things. So when I propositioned that we look at digital transformation for the Taj Group of Hotels, starting with the customer experience. That took some time, but we eventually got there. And I think that was again a defining moment for us. One, being first in the Indian hospitality market to do that, and two, actually beginning to see the customer experience not in silos, but as now what we call a personalized experience, a contextualized experience with all the data sitting behind it. Um, I guess moving from there, I moved to the Mahindra group, and again over there, I think the transition really was around saying, how do you look at multi-industry? So I'd worked in automotive earlier; it was around the retail side, but this was really looking at it from an end-to-end transformation, looking at the entire business's transformation. Of course, along with that, looking at new business models for the Club Mahindra business, or looking at an interesting business like Mahindra Logistics, where we worked with them in their post IPO sort of phase, right after the IPO. So all of these experiences from a transformation perspective brought in very different challenges, but it was a very enriching experience for me per se. I think the two things that sort of stood out over there were, one, was, of course, the automotive transformation that I had the opportunity to lead. And I can talk about a little bit more about that as we delve into this chat. But the second one was also the fact that we set up an innovation hub. We set up a data and analytics COE. So in terms of doing a lot of things which were first, at group level, even from a digital transformation office, I think we were one of the first groups in the country to have that kind of an office in place. So given that, I think there were a lot of firsts, and one learned and one contributed in terms of making a lot of shifts happen, which then reverberated across the industry. And more recently, I guess over the last 5 years, I've been with the Aditya Birla group. And I think I joined at a time when we had the pandemic within 3 months of my joining. And I think when one has the opportunity to be a part of a larger conglomerate, one does not always leverage that strength that one has. The pandemic forced me to do that in some senses, but I can say that I think that was a huge opportunity of learning that how do you take the strengths that you have at a group level, how do you take the resources that you have, how do you take the capabilities and partner with them to accelerate your own growth. When I say your own growth, your own business's growth. And I think that is something that we saw happen, in partnership with our group IT office, with our, data and analytics CEO that we had, and other, group companies that we learned from along the way to actually play catch up, because chemicals wasn't necessarily ahead of the game when it came to digital transformation. But I think learning from the other sectors, picking up and riding on some of the success stories was something that we did extremely well. So the pilot scale, and then institutionalized sort of philosophy worked extremely well for us at Aditya Birla Chemicals, and continues to do so.
Awesome. No, I think that gives a very, very good, you can say, view of your growth. And I think so again, picking up themes out of those themes. So one thing that comes out very clearly, that I mean, that you've been learning all along. So when you shifted from translation to technology, you went to NIIT and then learned technology, right? And then when you wanted to get into digital business, you actually did a MBA and then really got into marketing and strategy. Yeah, I think the other thing that comes out is like thinking out of the box, experimentation, and risk taking, and that's where we'll go to our next question. I think this was really hilarious, thinking about like an online partnership with a brand like Daily Mail, and then riding on top of it. And I think then in the second stint, driving business results with analytics, and trying it out in Taj Hotels, and I mean the Trilogy and Taj Hotels, and then realizing your potential beyond digital marketing in Taj Hotels and transforming a lot of other areas. And I think you also need that kind of playground to do a lot of things. And I think that playground just got bigger when you got to Mahindra, and you actually were working across different businesses, whether it is logistics or whether it is hospitality and all. And yes, of course, pandemic did teach us a lot of things. And I think the biggest thing it taught a lot, it taught every one of us, is how to collaborate and how to leverage your ecosystem, and activate it as a support system, which we are not normally good at, right? So I think let me come to I mean, what we saw as you were narrating is that you've been like boldly changing industry, changing roles, changing geographies, and you didn't have any qualms like coming out of automotive digital marketing to hotels, and hotels back to automotive to chemicals. And in chemicals, like frankly, I mean, it's not so much of, I mean, one of your fortes has been on the customer facing areas, and this is B2B, so you got to get into manufacturing and operational excellence and all. So Namrita, now I think this is something which is also very, very relevant to our today's theme of Women's Day, which is risk taking, right? So what is at the root of being comfortable with such changes, and how do you look at change? How do you look at this discomfort or risk? And I guess there must be some childhood story behind it, which generally is. Go ahead and tell us about it.
No, you're spot on, Jagdish. So I think what happened with me was my father was in management and he was in a transferable job. So every 2 or 3 years, he moved cities and we moved with him. So I went to 10 plus schools. And as a child, now in the non-internet era, because that's when I did my schooling, uh, I didn't know life any other way, so I thought this was normal. Children change their schools every 2 years. It hit me for the first time actually when I went for my undergrad, and I realized people had spent a lifetime in Delhi. And I was like, okay, so you have never moved out of Delhi as a city to live in another city. And I think that changing schools, changing cities, getting into new environments could be as diverse as, tier one cities like Delhi, Bombay, to going to tier two cities like, a Baroda or Kanpur. Those things made me very resilient, made me very adaptable in terms of realizing that was just the way of life. I think that played a huge role in being able to feel comfortable with new environments, with unknown territories, and therefore take risks in life. um, I think the other part, somewhere a couple of years later, that happened for me was there was an HBR article which said that every individual should have 6 different careers in their lifetime. And I've quoted this earlier also. And that actually happened fairly early on in my career. And it made me start thinking, okay, this is the one thing that I know and I do it well. But what else? What are the other hats I can wear? And so when opportunities knocked, or when I saw that there is a transition that I could see in the larger landscape, I took those bets. Some worked, some didn't, but I think in the larger scheme of things, most of them did. uh, you know so I would say
Awesome.
that's where a lot of the germination of risk taking came from.
Oh no, absolutely, absolutely. And I think I mean, I'm just connecting it to what you said previously. You also want to prepare for it. It's not just like jumping into it, but you also have to learn swimming. I mean, you getting into technology, you got to learn technology. You want to be a manager, you got to like think about doing a full time or a part time MBA, right? So yeah. So Namrita, now let's talk about one of the things that you picked up early, which is this whole entrepreneurship and this ownership mindset, and then being very, very, I would say, focused on analytics. And also I do see a very good connection here in terms of driving a sense of ownership with numbers and KPIs, and demonstrating results. So give us a couple of examples of like how do you look at ownership with results, and where you drove those results first, and you identified that, hey, these are the KPIs and I need to drive it. And yeah, just over to you. I let me not take more air time.
Okay, so I think I briefly mentioned that your manager plays a very important role in the leeway that they give you, and I think that happened again very early on in my career at Inchcape, and I was fortunate that I got an opportunity where my manager said, "Here are the numbers, but I leave you to decide how you want to deliver on those." And it's while it's a hands-off approach, it was not shying away from the responsibility of playing the manager role. So I think that was an early experience. But let me come to Taj, and since Melra is also here, I'll share an experience where when I came in, digital was a very, very small percentage of our spend and of what we did with digital. um, but having said that, I think one of the opportunities that I got was that we got some great partners and we started delivering a lot of ROI on our digital marketing campaigns. Once we started delivering the ROI on the digital marketing campaigns, on performance campaigns, etc., the conversation that we started having with our finance team, with our CFO's office and the finance team, was around the fact that, why do we need to cap the budget that we have for digital marketing? Because as you pay a commission to a partner, in a trade business, in any trade business, you could also allow us, as long as we are giving an ROI of a certain amount, for those numbers to remain uncapped. And what I can say is, to the credit of the CFO office, they allowed us to exponentially expand our spends as long as we continued to deliver the 10x return that we were giving through our search advertising predominantly in those days. Now, this was extremely important because this was right after the 26/11 attacks. People were scared of getting into the hotels once again. And at this point in time, everybody was sort of strung about, business, creating business impact, and most importantly, getting the customers back into the hotel. So I think the partnership that we had with the finance team was incredible, in terms of we delivered the numbers, but then we had the opportunity to expand into, we were the first in terms of launching a mobile presence, creating a social media footprint, doing the performance marketing at scale, and eventually leading to the digital transformation. So I think the partnership, when you talk about ownership with numbers, it's a partnership. This ownership can happen only when you have somebody in the business, on the business side, who equally is open to give you that opportunity to actually demonstrate that those numbers can be delivered. I think, again, I have been extremely fortunate, both at Mahindra's as well as over here. The cultures have largely been around, ROI driven sort of, use cases even before we start a project. And that kind of grounding has been extremely helpful, because when I look at, let's take the auto example from the Mahindra group. We actually managed to create a dealership of the future, which was maybe 2 or 3 years ahead of its time. And I'll talk a little bit more about what we did differently over there. Or let me put it over here, that we basically allowed a customer to order their entire car buying process remotely. So whether it was the finance, whether it was buying the car, paying for it, whether it was doing the test drive, or whether it was the delivery, all of the different elements could be done. So this is something that we launched in the market in 2018, and in 2020 we had the pandemic. So that's why I say we were 2 years ahead, because of the fact that then this became the preferred way of buying cars in that landscape, so to speak. And the numbers obviously then came as a result of a better customer experience. The numbers came because people realized that this was the experience that would allow them to maintain their safety, and yet sort of buy the car. I think the other example that I'd like to give over here is from the Aditya Birla group, and we've been doing a lot of work in the whole industry 4.0 space. And given that, I think over there, I'll take one example. For example, energy is a large variable cost. For all those who are in manufacturing, they can relate to that. And we have gone ahead and done a lot of interventions in terms of energy optimization, which have saved us millions of dollars per year across our plants. And that again, goes back to showing the ROI, making sure that the variable cost actually then gets managed a lot better. And that's one example. Again, because I work largely for traditional businesses, we often have equipments which no longer have OEM support. And I'm sure, Jagdish, you can relate to that with the Tata Motors background,
Oh
right?
yeah, absolutely. A lot of
So
them.
given that, you need, now if you have an equipment, for example, through which 50% of your production runs, and if you have two of them or three of them, and if one of them breaks down, that means you're impacting 33% to 50% of your production. So having predictive analytics for these equipments, doing condition based monitoring becomes extremely important, and you can imagine the kind of impact it can have from an ROI point of view. And these are just one or two examples that I'm giving, but the whole mindset is around saying, how do I make that shift happen? Whether it's in supply chain, whether it's in manufacturing, whether it's on the customer front, but really starting with what business impact will it create? How will it impact the customer experience? And that sort of becomes the driving force for embracing a solution or looking for an alternative.
No, absolutely, absolutely. I second that, Namrita. And sometimes I cite this example that when we were looking at IoT interventions, we actually the one of the first things we did was to actually open our annual report. The thicker version of the annual report, which dons the shelves of all the senior leaders, and we started going into the cost numbers, right? The detailed cost numbers, and we realized that I mean, straight away there were costs which were in three-digit crores,
Yeah.
which were like where you could actually build a PDCA loop using IoT interventions, and which could even if you save a percent there, it would be a few crores. So yeah, definitely, I think numbers. So just to kind of wrap up that discussion, so your so the when you focus on the results, the discussion shifts away from costs. People stop looking at things from cost, which is exactly what happened in case of Taj. And the byproduct of that is that the finance function actually becomes your partner
Yeah.
because you are demonstrating the numbers. And yeah, it also kind of strengthens that ROI driven culture that you're talking about, and just uh, kind of just takes care of a lot of naysayers, and there are enough of them about technology. I think the best way to overcome any kind of resistance to technology is to show results, right? So Namrita, maybe let me shift to now, analytics and AI. I think you have been passionate about both of them, and you run a podcast on AI. So tell me, what's the fundamental building? I mean, what are the fundamental building blocks of analytics and AI, purely from how you think about these as a business leader, and then talk to us through your personal journey, and I'm sure that would have lessons for everybody here.
Sure. So I think the minute we start thinking about analytics and AI, the underpinning oil is data. So, right.
You're a
So,
believer in data.
see, we can't get away from the data, because the data, while I know can tell a lot of stories, and often I say it can tell the story that you want to tell, because that is also the art that you can use with the science of data. But I think data becomes extremely important. Uh, as a pure marketer, as I was looking at it in my early years, the data would tell me stories about my customers, would tell me stories about their preferences, would help me to segment, etc. But I think those, while those are absolutely still very relevant today, I think the volume of data that we are working with today is second to none. Today, 90% of the data that we have has been produced in the last 2 years, right? Or even a shorter period of time since Gen AI has come in. Maybe that's an even shorter period of time. So, given that context, I think it becomes extremely important that, we have a lot of data. If we want to do analytics, what is the quality of the data that we have? Is that really data that is important? And that becomes extremely important given that the DPDPA act has come out, and we are all, as we are dealing with customers and consumers, we're going to have to become a lot more sensitive about how do we deal with that data, or is that data really necessary for us to capture. I think the second aspect is data has sat in silos for the longest period of time. So really preparing that data and getting it into some kind of a data lake, some kind of a data warehouse becomes extremely important. because that is where the fun part starts, where you start saying, okay, fine, I can now do the analytics around it. I can actually drive the insights. So before all of that, you're only doing the reporting, and the reporting can prima facie headline, 10,000 feet level, give you a lot of insights. But what happens is, once you get into the analytics phase, a lot of that journey will give you counterintuitive insights. And I think that's a very big takeaway that I've had personally. So I'll give you an example. Going back to Taj, we were doing a lot of our Taj holidays selling, which used to happen based on Taj holidays as a brand. We started looking at our Google Analytics data and realized that people were more focused on destinations rather than on holidays as a theme. And in a particular year, talking to the Taj Holidays team, we actually decided to shift that focus, from holidays as a brand to a destination focused approach. And that led to a 30% uptake in the bookings. Now, I'm not again saying that is, solely because of that one decision, because it can always be debatable. But what I'm trying to say is that, these are the kind of insights that you would have never thought of otherwise. Or when you think about them, you say, of course, ye to hona hi tha. Destination makes a lot more sense rather than saying themes like mountains or, beaches or stuff like that. But you start saying, oh, in hindsight, you say, yes, this is the way it should have been. But when analytics gives you, counterintuitive sort of insights, I'll give you one more example, which is very interesting. When I was at Trilogy, what I found was that we had a lot of customers who were coming in and booking a test drive for the highest variant. And when they walked into the dealership, they would typically, take a test drive of a low variant. And when we went back to figure out why this was happening and we questioned the customers, they had an assumption that if I take book a test drive for the highest variant, I'll get the test drive sooner. So that was a misconception in their head. And then we used marketing communication to go and sort of say, irrespective of the variant that you sign up for, that you request a test drive for, the time frame will be the same. Now, this was for one of our OEM clients that we did this. So what I'm trying to say is that, these kind of insights don't come at you unless you have done a little bit of analytics, unless you've actually probed a little bit. And I think they form a very solid foundation then, for the work that we do in AI. Because again, with AI, once you start doing modeling, you will realize that, your models can give you, again, very, very counterintuitive, intelligence, which will not resonate with your gut, which will not resonate with your experience. But then, you want to test it out. And I think that's something that, we've managed to do. I would say, when we're looking at, my experience across the organizations, um, as I said, I've been a big proponent of using data analytics. I've given two or three examples over here. I think in more recent times, when I talked about the energy saving, electrolyzers, for example, let me give a different example. Electrolyzers are at the heart of our commodity chemical manufacturing. The performance of these electrolyzers, the lifetime of these electrolyzers are extremely important for us as a business. We were doing this on Excel for the longest period of time. We took that Excel data and then we put it into a database. We then went on to put it into a data lake, built some models on top of it, and again, this has again led to significant savings of about a crore per plant per year, just on account of the fact that we are able to actually improve the performance. We are able to increase the shelf life of these equipments, because previously we were doing scheduled maintenance, and today we are doing condition based monitoring, and therefore we have, along with the condition based monitoring, all of these models which are telling us when we need to be looking at the health of some of these electrolyzers. So I think these are some examples of going back into looking at analytics and really bringing about that shift. I think on the supply chain side, again, I'll give one more example which is very relevant to the pandemic. Where we had scenario based planning that we were doing using again a proprietary homegrown sort of tool that we had. And we realized that it was not enough to be able to look at the dynamism of the pandemic. So that is when we introduced AI based models, and we went for a platform partner at scale to really start doing much better demand forecasting, much better supply planning. And again, that was also tied back to margin maximization, which was sort of relevant for a lot of the business outcomes, so to speak. So I would say analytics and AI have been underpinning a lot of the transformation work that we have been doing across organizations over the last 2 decades.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Um, I think I had a question about operational excellence, which I think you have already answered in a few examples, like whether it's about the electrolyzers or whether it's about the energy cost and all that. So let me now come to the our Women's Day special question. But before I go there, I mean, there have been a lot of comments which have been coming, and one of them is actually a question to you, which is very relevant to our discussion. Let me first bring in some of the audience here. So we have Satya joining us from Texas, and I think that must have been like 6:30 his time. So, I mean, I always give a special thanks to Satya given the time zone where he comes from. And we have Sikhin Tanu Shaw. I hope I pronounce your name correctly, Sikhin. He's joining from Siemens Financial Services, New Bombay. You have Bala Prasad Pedigari. Oh, hey Bala, thanks for joining. We just met today afternoon. We were part of the jury in hackathon. Thanks Bala for joining us. And Amarinder is explaining. It says he's saying that what that meant was warm welcome, Namrita Mahindro to ClariTea Chat and happy we must.
Thank
In
you
Japan.
for that,
Okay,
Amarinder.
and then we have a hello coming from Nitin from Bangalore, and nice words coming from Deepak. Hey, thanks Deepak. And now let me bring in the question from Amrinder. So he says there is a lot of excitement about the role of AI agents in the enterprise. Please share your candid thoughts on this subject.
Yeah. Amarinder, this is a very pertinent question. And I think AI agents, as we are seeing them, are fast evolving. I think the thing is that we were using AI agents predominantly for specific tasks, and we are currently also largely using them for addressing specific tasks in the enterprise, whether it is on the legal side, whether it's on the finance side, whether it's on the martech side or on the manufacturing side, right? But what I'm increasingly seeing is that this landscape is going to change, and you're going to have jobs being done by agentic AI and autonomous AI as we move forward. Uh, and that, I would say, could happen in the span of the next 1 to 2 years. And the reason I say that is only this morning I was seeing, an update that somebody done about one of the DeepSeek models actually using 50 AI agents together to solve multiple tasks simultaneously. And I was absolutely bowled over, to say the least. 50 tasks being done simultaneously. So can you imagine, what is the era that we're going to be living in? We keep saying that agentic AI is going to make our life easier. I think we are going to be actually overworked more than ever before, with this scale of processing happening, with this scale of sort of work happening. So AI agents are here to stay. Their complexity is increasing, and their ability to do multiple tasks and actually then at some point in time switch it over to jobs, I think is very real. And if you look at, what the NVIDIA CEO said, he said on that graph that you have from AI agents, and this was at CES 2025, he said after AI agents, you're going to actually have physical AI. And we are also seeing physical AI, which is embodied AI or robotics, with the AI intelligence already being used across organizations. Some of it is happening in India, and India is catching up fast, I can tell you that. But it is very pervasive at a mass scale internationally. So, sort of that's sort of my thought process in terms of, AI agents are here to stay. They're going to scale, and you're going to see a combination of AI agents, autonomous agents, and uh, robotics or any other form of physical AI come into play.
Oh my God! But that was a, I mean that one really foxed me. That AI using AI itself to get the first level of data and then crunch it at the second level. Reminds me of the movie Inception. Where you have to figure out which level of the dream you are in, right? Which level of the
Exactly.
AI you are in. Okay. Namrita, there are a couple of more questions. What I will do is that I'll take them. I have a clock running in front of me, so
Hmm.
I'll take them. I know you have a commitment after this, so let me jump to my Women's Day special question. There are three things I want to ask you about, which typically I have seen all women face at whatever level in the in their journey. So that's about glass ceilings. There's a perception that there are glass ceilings for women. There's beyond a particular level, they face difficulty in growing. But then you have grown to this level, so what's your view and how do you break those? The work-life balance and and the either-or mindset. Either kids or work, either work or life, and I mean the you can't have it all. That kind of mind. So maybe just your view of it from your own lens of personal experience.
So I'll take it in the reverse order,
Yeah.
Jagdish. As you said. So the either or, honestly, for me is, it does not have to be an either or. I have always been an and person. And the way you make the and happen is really through getting your ecosystem to support you. So you need to see, we all are social beings, if I can call it that. And I think even though there are large proponents of nuclear families, etc., but today we have an ecosystem which could be in the form of family, which could be in the form of professional services. I always encourage women to look at leveraging that ecosystem so that you don't have to make a choice, but you can go the and route. The second aspect is set boundaries. So of course you can be that utopian mother, you can be that utopian, sort of daughter or wife or whatever, sister, whatever relationship you're talking about. But to my mind, I think you need to set boundaries. And when you start respecting those boundaries yourself, and when you have a discussion, many a times I have to have a discussion saying, this is my work time, even though I may be working from home, or even though I may be it may be a weekend, but I need to do this. So setting those boundaries become extremely important. And as you start creating those boundaries, you will find that the ecosystem around you respects those, and actually they are proud of you. They are very proud of the fact that you've set those boundaries. And um, when you can show them outcomes for those boundaries, when you can show them that there is something which is in the well-being of the entire family, or makes the family so much more richer, or so richer, and not in terms of financial terms, in terms of the experience, the wisdom, the other softer aspects. I think then that brings a lot of positivity to the fact that you are looking at this in the positive light. So that's the first question, right? The second question that you asked, Jagdish, was sorry, that was around the glass
Work
ceiling,
life balance.
the
Work
work
life
life balance.
balance.
See, the work life balance, to my mind, Jagdish, is highly overrated. Because I think I have found that you find ways and means of blending the two in a manner where you're compromising on none. So I think um, you can create spaces. Today we are in an always on environment. I don't think there's anything like a pure. We are sitting here on a Saturday evening, right? we are choosing, we are making choices that we want to be a part of this webinar. All those people who are attending today are making this choice instead of spending it, with their families. I'm assuming most people are on a 5-day week. uh, so given that, I think it's a choice we are making because it leads to self enrichment, learning something, taking away a nugget, etc. So I think it's about finding that balance, but the two for me, need to be balanced, and they don't need to be segregated, they need to be integrated. And I think the integration of work in life rather than the segregation is really the mantra to finding that balance. So that's sort of what I personally follow, given that I try to integrate the two, finding these hours, these 1 or 2 hours, even over a weekend, or during work. If I need to step out, then obviously making those adjustments if there's a family commitment or an exigency, etc. The third question was about glass ceilings, and I'm just conscious of time, so that is why I'm sort of not rushing through it, but trying to make the points sort of briefly. In terms of the glass ceiling, um, I'm not saying that there isn't a perceived men's club, but equally, I think it largely lies first in a woman's mind. If you choose to see the world that there is a men's club or a boys club out there and I am the outsider, I think then you start with a barrier. I have never, since you asked for a personal opinion, I have never looked at it like that. I've never gone to anybody and said that this is a boys' club, and and I worked in manufacturing, and automotive manufacturing or chemical manufacturing are predominantly, bastions for male-dominated industries. But having said that, I think the way we have to look at each other, even before we look at the gender, is we all are humans. And I think if we can relate to each other as humans first, if you don't carry the barrier, and I'm saying this for all the women, if there are any women on the show, don't carry that barrier in your head. The minute you start showing to the men that you are an equal and you don't ask for any special privileges for being a woman, I think the men also start respecting you for that, and they're more inclusive. So I think that is one key aspect of you know the glass, breaking the glass ceiling. The
No,
second thing is
absolutely.
find the opportunity to network. I know men have their smoke breaks and their drink breaks and all of that, but take out that time. Again, as I said, draw those boundaries. If from your family time you need to take out you know an evening or 2 evenings in a month and say this is the time I need to actually go out and network, or I want to have a coffee with somebody, or I need to be at this event, do that. Make those, yes, those are I wouldn't call them sacrifices, but do that to make sure that you are in the network, so to speak.
No,
So I think
absolutely.
that is extremely important. And the third and the last is find yourself mentors. I think that makes all the difference. I have been extremely fortunate to have great mentors, great managers. And I think when you have great mentors and great managers, they help you clear the cobwebs from your head and the spaces around. So I think that truly helps in breaking the glass ceiling.
No, absolutely, absolutely. So, Namrita, I mean, if you're okay, I'll extend it by 5, 6 minutes.
Sure.
Uh, so, this reminds me of the story. So, I was actually, I when I was in GE, I actually selected a woman leader for basically the for managing the operations, and the operations was primarily plant and service shops and all that, and it was a tough environment. And there were a lot of cynics in the organization saying that, will a lady be able to do it? So thankfully, my manager was a lady, and I was like, you know what, I have confidence that this can be done. And to demonstrate that decision, uh, this manager who I had selected, on the day of her joining, she actually traveled to the plant, and she did her joining formalities in the plant, and she was there for the next few days. I mean, these are like some, you can say, counterintuitive things that you can do to demonstrate that you're no less than anybody else. Hey, but I would like to kind of just take some quick takeaways from there. I think very, very well said. Be an and person. Don't think about either or. You want to have it with both hands, and you can have it. And I think that's where You take the support of your ecosystem, set some boundaries, respect them yourself. Once you start respecting your boundaries, your family and ecosystem will appreciate it, and they will respect it as well. And when they start seeing the results, I mean, it just builds a positive loop. Work life balance, I mean, I those are gems of words, Namrita, that these are, don't segregate work and life, integrate work and life, and golden words, I would say, right? And I agree with you. Glass ceilings are always in the mind. You know, I mean, a boys' club is not a boys' club; it's a boys' club in your mind. None of those boys said that this is our club and a lady is not invited, right? So, and I have seen that in operation. Working with many great lady leaders as well. And of course, like we can't overstate it. You have to find mentors, and yes, the mentors basically help you clear the cobwebs. Both, you are right, both in the mind as well as in the ecosystem. So Namrita, if we still have some time, maybe quick bites, 1 to 2 sentences. Okay, this should take like 10-15 seconds per question.
Okay.
Um, you are passionate about ethics and AI. Give us a quick view. Now,
So,
guys, before you answer that, guys, everybody, this is a rapid fire round, and if you have like any kind of small little curiosity about Namrita, which book inspires her, who's her inspiring leader, please go ahead and send your questions. We are going to make it really fast. Yeah, Namrita.
okay. So
Ethics
I
and
think ethics and AI, I would say, to my mind, ethics in AI and in technology across the board is going to be the next sustainability. What I mean by that is, I think just as important as sustainability is today, and we've woken up to it and smelled the coffee, I think ethics is going down the same route. Technology can be a great ally. It can also have a lot of negative connotations, even when the intent is not wrong, just because of the nature of AGI, super intelligence, being around the cusp. In the next 4 to 5 years to 10 years, that's the sort of time frame. So, given that, I think ethics is going to become that critical, so to speak. Yeah.
absolutely. So, share an example where, like, talent and passion can create miracles.
I think talent and passion can create miracles anywhere. I'm going to take an example from the pandemic because this was absolutely crazy for me. The number of housewives I saw, because it's Women's Day, so I want to take this example. The number of housewives I saw coming out of their cocoons. And these were 40, 50, 60, 70 year olds also, and who started becoming home chefs. I think to me, when you talk about talent and passion, that is the route to empowerment and emancipation. And we saw that happen during the pandemic with all of these women entrepreneurs, particularly. And I think that was very inspiring personally for me.
Awesome, awesome. Satya is asking, what's your favorite comfort food?
Comfort food, okay, chocolates.
Awesome. And Sikhin is asking, what are your hobbies?
Reading. I'm a voracious reader. I like long walks whenever I can do them. I'm a nomad at heart, so I love to travel and try new things, meet new people, experiment with new cultures. So anything which is out of the box, different, and of course technology.
Okay. So the next question is a competition between prominence effect versus recency effect. Okay. Taj or Mahindra holidays.
See, they both hold a very special place. And I told you I'm an and person, not an or person, Melroy. Thank you for that trick question. But my answer remains and. And I'm not saying this to be politically correct.
So one book that you would recommend to people, since you're a voracious reader.
So I think one book, there are many, there are so many of them. But for those, since we were talking about AI right now, AI in 2041, that's by Kai Fu Lee. Read that. That's amazing. It's a couple of years old. I think it's about 4 or 5 years old, but that's a great one. There are a bunch of other books which I'm now beginning to read, which are on looking at, the whole mindset around brain power. So I think, and looking at how do you deal with, controlling the mind. So I think those, as I finish those, I would be happy to share, more details around those. But yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay. So maybe one last question. In the entire world, who would you want to mentee? I mean, whose mentee you would want to be? I hope that's a question. Who would you want to be as a mentor?
No, who would I want to be as a mentor? Or
Who would you want to mentor? Who would you want to?
who would you want to mentee? I think when I look for mentees, I'll take it in the way the question was asked. For me, the hunger, the passion, the determination to do something is the most important quality that I look for. Everything else can be acquired, but those are things that you have inborn. So that's what I look in a mentee.
Okay. Okay. So before we wrap up and say bye to everyone, Namrita, any question for me? I know I've been grilling you all this while, more than an hour. Any quick last question for me?
Yes, I think two questions, Jagdish. I'm coming in on Women's Day from a women's perspective, but from a man's perspective, what is the one thing that you think that women should be doing differently, to feel more inclusive, to be able to, share their voice and have a seat at the table? I want a man's perspective for women.
Oh no, awesome, awesome. So I think I would like to use my favorite jumla here. It is like see, all of us have a Hanuman inside us, right? And actually, women have a bigger Hanuman inside. I mean, they are bigger Hanumans actually. That means they are unaware of their capabilities. I'll tell you, biologically and evolution wise, women are far more, I would say, well-rounded personalities, right? And well-rounded and well-grounded personalities. It's just that I think the programming that they get from the society is like it basically like buries the Hanuman more and more, like उनके हनुमान को ऐसा दबाते दबाते रहते हैं. So I think it's just to realize that, and the environment today is so supportive. All the things that you said, right? I would say the same thing. Find a mentor, right? Get an end mindset, right? And just uh, collaborate with your ecosystem, and realize the best that's inside. And I must tell you this as well. In the new world, in the current world that we have, in my personal experience, most of the men are out there to support the women. I mean, when I look around, myself and my co-brothers and everybody, I find that we are encouraging, but we really have to work a lot harder to like bring that Hanuman out and tell them, you got to believe in yourself.
No, well said, well said. Thank you for that.
Yeah. So, Namrata, let me wrap up in the next 1 minute. So I mean, and thanks everyone for your questions and for all the interactions. Really, I mean, we couldn't cover everything, but that was overwhelming. Thank you for that. I think very, very interesting journey from Namrita. Started as a translator, learned technology, did an MBA, did digital operations, and became a digital leader. And then we covered, how that risk taking came about, out of like a constant change happening right at the childhood level. And then we covered the results driven ownership. So ownership automatically comes if you start focusing on numbers. So if you own the numbers, you own the business, right? And then that led to our next one, which is like, if you own the numbers, then the only way to improve those numbers is data and analytics, is to use all analytics and excel at it, and which is what we have seen Namrita do, right from her days, in the UK when she was doing digital marketing, just focusing on the numbers and trying to improve those numbers, and that I think led to an automatic I would say, affinity towards analytics and excellence in analytics, which has continued and has led to her excellence in AI now. And then we did talk about, a lot of examples around, whether it's operational excellence, whether it's raising the level of the game, like, taking Tash to be one of the leaders in digital marketing, etc. And a lot of things driven by data analytics, and being driven by numbers. And then we of course came to the Women's Day part, where I think very good insight from Namrita. Develop an end mindset, leverage your ecosystem to get to that end mindset. Set some boundaries, respect them yourself, leverage your ecosystem, and then your ecosystem starts appreciating, respecting those boundaries. Don't try to segregate work life and then try to balance it. Integrate it and basically enrich your life by choosing wisely between what you take from work and what you take from life. And a very good example she gave of, like, taking a Saturday evening out for this kind of a chat. And yeah, the glass ceilings are in mind, the boys clubs are in the mind, and you have to basically first throw them out of the mind, and then they automatically don't exist. And then Namrita is a living example of that. And last but not the least, find yourself mentors. um, they will help you clear the cobwebs, not only in your mind but also in your workplace, right? Very, very enriching chat, Namrita. Very fast paced. I'm like still not believing that it's just about one. It's like 73 minutes since we started. It actually feels like it's just been about 15 minutes. And I think a great interaction from everybody around there. So before we call it a day, and I sort of let everybody enjoy their weekend. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, our audience, for attending and engaging and interacting. And I know a lot of you watch the recording, so thank you all, and everyone. Please enjoy your family time. And Namrita, thank you for joining me on ClariTea Chat today.
Thank you, Jagdish, for having me here, and thank you, everybody in the audience, for your absolutely brilliant questions and for all the interaction. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. And once again, a happy Women's Day to everybody. See you guys. Bye bye.
Bye.